up, everybody? This is Damron with Trash Ass Gamers, bringing you another Elder Scrolls Online Veteran Hard Mode Dungeon Guide. This is for Moonhunter Keep. If you've been following our channel, we're a relatively new channel, then you'll know this is our last dungeon that we have to finish a complete guide of every veteran dungeon in the game right now. So just want to take a moment to say, I appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten and all the support that we've gotten thus far. If you've liked our videos and you've liked our guides, feel free to like and subscribe. If you haven't seen any of these before, what we'll do is we'll fast forward through the ad portions. We'll focus mainly on boss mechanics in the dungeon and basically touch up on anything that you need to know. We do have a non-hard mode guide for this dungeon up as well, so check that out if you're not doing hard mode, because the hard mode final boss is significantly different. It's honestly, in my opinion, I think it's one of the most fun hard mode fights that I've played in this game. I really had a lot of fun enjoying and just playing it and learning the mechanics of it. A thing about this dungeon that you need to know running it is that pretty much all the ads, everything in this dungeon can hit you very, very hard. So you saw me pretty much, yep, there goes the no death run right off the bat, right? Keeping it trashy for you guys. But everything in this game, if you let them hit you with a charged up heavy attack as a DPS player, can certainly kill you. So your tank really wants to maintain aggro of everything in the dungeon. So just keep that in mind as you're running, because the werewolves, the archers, everything in this dungeon is very, very strong and can kill you pretty quickly. So anyway, let's get moving again. Thanks for the support, everybody. So we have, after this, all the hard modes up until the Wrathstone comes out, and we'll start making sure we're keeping up to date as the newer dungeons come out. It's been a fun ride doing all the hard modes and getting all the videos done. Just another thing, this dungeon is found in Reaper's March, which is obviously in the Aldmeri Dominion portion of Tamriel. We'll talk a little bit about the lore here in a minute after we finish up with Jailor Melitus, who's the first boss in this arena, and he has a couple attacks you need to be aware of. Definitely the tank wants to hold aggro of that heavy attack and the swinging sword attacks, but all the other players, you need to take note of that AoE that he generates around him. Now the tank is probably the only player that's going to be able to survive that AoE and not be out of that AoE. So you definitely need to be away from that, and then basically when it explodes, you're going to see these blood geysers go out in 6 or 7 directions, and those aren't going to kill you, but they're certainly going to do a decent amount of damage. And if they do hit you, it's going to slow you down, and when you're slowed, you're going to have a harder time avoiding his second attack, which he puts his sword up in the air and shoots blood geysers out that spawn at every player's feet. And then periodically he's going to spawn in these blood werewolves, and those can really hit very hard like everything else in the dungeon. So the tank definitely wants to be sure he's pulling aggro of those werewolves as soon as they spawn in. Same with the archer. When the archer comes in, he does have a heavy charged attack that will kill you if you don't interrupt that. So pay attention to the ads that come in on the fight. But overall, he doesn't have too much health, so you really shouldn't have too much trouble getting past him, especially if we're playing this dungeon on hard mode. So let's talk a little bit about the lore of Moonhunter's Keep as we're making our way to the next boss. So if you're, walking around Moonhunter's Keep and you're thinking, well, this seems like kind of an odd place for a werewolf base to be, well, you'd be right, because in fact it used to be served as a keep for the Order of the Silver Dawn in the Reaper's March were actually werewolf hunters, and in time Vykosa, who is the final boss of the dungeon, decided to take over the keep, and while it seemed impregnable at the time of its building by the Order of the Silver Dawn, in fact Vykosa now controls Moonhunter Keep, and her base of operations is here, and what she's trying to do is basically trying to recruit all the werewolves or the lycanthropes to her cause and eventually take over the entire world. Unfortunately for her, we are the heroes who have been tasked to expel the werewolves and stop Vykosa's plans to overtake Tamriel with her horde of werewolves. So we're actually approaching the end of the Hedge maze here, and we're approaching the next boss, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but that's a little bit of interesting lore about Moonhunter Keep. So we'll talk at the next boss. Alright, so here we go, the Hedge Maze Guardian, which is kind of a giant lurcher-like creature. He's not too bad, you just kind of need to know a little bit of mechanics about the area. His attacks aren't too bad, he's got a heavy attack that the tank will certainly want to maintain aggro of. And he also will do a large conical spray of this bark-like material from his body, and that'll certainly do a lot of damage and can kill the DPS players. So certainly be aware of that, conical attack if he does it. But periodically throughout the fight, what's going to happen is these Spriggans will be launching these kind of white balls over the hedge maze, and as the fight progresses, you kind of enter a phase where there's more and more Spriggans, where at 75% you saw there was only 2, and then at 50% I believe there's 3. And basically when those Spriggans spawn, you cannot DPS the boss anymore. They will heal him faster than you can do damage. I don't care how much damage you think you can do, you cannot out DPS the heals that the Spriggan are given to the Hedge Maze Guardian. So you have to go kill those Spriggans before you go back to damaging the boss. Once you kill all of them, you're kind of entering the next phase. Now there's also some stranglers around the map that will, lock you up, but basically they just need to be taken down. You can't kill them, but you stun them, and whoever was in their grasp will be freed, but they'll remain stunned unless you get too close of them, which is inevitable because you have to come kill the Spriggans, and eventually those stranglers are going to get up and possibly strangle you. So that's really only mechanics there are. As you get to each phase of the Hedge Maze Guardian, the Spriggans tend to be further into the maze, and you'll have to kind of go find them. But just look for the white flame-like thing they're shooting over the hedge maze, and you'll be able to find them. They don't have too much health, you can kill them pretty quickly, and once you do that, you'll be able to go and do damage again to the boss. So that's really it. There's not much else to it, so let's go ahead and finish him up, and we'll see you at the next boss.
Don't call me sweetmeat.
They shall not intrude much longer, my...
Alright, so here we go. Up next is Mylenne the Moon-Caller, and she's not too bad as long as you understand what is going to be killing you. If you just kind of rush in there and not understand things, she can certainly be a difficult fight, but she doesn't have too much health. And what's going to kill you are not necessarily her attacks, but the not dealing with the shock wardens and the dire wolves that come out. So she certainly has a heavy attack that can cause a lot of damage, and the tank's obviously going to want to hold on to that. But the big part about this fight are the shock wardens. They will periodically spawn in, and the DPS need to kill them very, very quickly, and then the tank needs to take Mylenne into the large AoE shock field that she generates, because over time Mylenne gets stronger, and you actually slow down that process or dissipate that process by taking her into the shock warden AoE that is left behind after you kill the shock warden. Don't focus too much on the dire wolves. Now they certainly have a lunge attack that can do a lot of damage, but let your AoEs kind of deal with them as you're focusing on Mylenne and the shock wardens. Like I said, she doesn't have too much health, and as long as you're taking her into the shock warden AoEs as you kill them, you know, Mylene won't really get strong and she won't really cause too much of a threat to you. The problem is if you're too slow about getting her to run into the Shock Warden's field, she'll eventually enrage, in which she becomes very, very strong, and that can prove to be quite a difficult fight. But if you use that method, it shouldn't give you too much difficulty. So let's bash her up and we'll get moving on. Alright, so we're rolling up on the Archivist here, which isn't too difficult of a boss if you understand kind of what to do, and I'm going to show you the best way to approach this boss to kind of avoid a lot of the mechanics and just get through this fight. So first off, he's going to have two ads in front of him, one of which he's going to turn into a werewolf behemoth, and that werewolf behemoth, basically you want to kill him as quick as possible, but when that werewolf behemoth generates a large AoE around him, be sure you step out of that. The Archivist will put an AoE on a single player. That player needs to be, so it's here on me, everybody needs to get out of that circle and I need to block. If anybody else is in that circle, they're going to take a huge shock attack damage. Also, another thing, you're seeing a player in that purple bubble here. Basically when that happens, you want to go over there and you want to free them. And then he also does the symbols of Xerxes, in which at some point he'll put a symbol above his head and everybody needs to go to that particular symbol. But the best way to do it is to just completely focus on him. Don't focus on any of those mechanics. Just burn him down and you won't even have to worry about any of that. He doesn't have too much health. Just stack on him, and basically when the second set of ads come down the stairs, the tank is going to pull the next spawned werewolf away from the DPS, and the DPS, you just stay on the Archivist and you finish him off. That's the easiest way to get through this fight. You see, we did it with 2 DPS and a healer, so you can do it. You don't need to run with 3 DPS. You just have to stay on him and execute him before the symbols of Xerxes goes off. So let's approach the last boss here, Vykosa, and this is an awesome fight. So let's read our scroll to go into hard mode, and we have a lot to talk about, but the main thing you need to know about this fight on hard mode is patience. This is not a fight that you're going to get through quickly. You want to take your time and approach each phase of this fight the way it's supposed to be approached. If you think you're just going to DPS her down, you're going to get overwhelmed with ads, werewolves, the shock wardens, and the Archivist kind of ghost form. And we're going to talk about all that stuff in a way that I think will make this fight very easy for you. So basically when the fight starts, the tank is going to pull Vykosa's aggro as well as one of the werewolves, and the DPS and healer is going to take down the other one. So we took out Zell there, and now we're going to go kill Ari. And you be sure you're just attacking the werewolves. You don't want, or the dire wolves. You don't want to be damaging Vykosa right now, because the next phase is going to start when Vykosa gets down to 90% health. So you can see we haven't really done too much damage here, and every time we get to the point where we start damaging Vykosa, Vykosa other than the execute phase, we're actually just kind of heavy attacking, getting our resources back, taking our time. And then as soon as we hit 90%, we stop. We don't want to attack anymore. And what that's going to do is that's going to spawn 2 werewolves. And basically, the thing that's going to help you out is if someone on your team is running time stop. And this is going to help throughout the fight. You're going to see this because every phase gets a little bit harder, right? Every time we go into one of his percent phase, what comes out gets a little bit more dangerous. And if someone casts time stop, and then you want your DPS to alternate their ultimates, so then the next phase happens at 85%. So again, 80 and then 85. At 85, 3 werewolves comes in. Boom, he hits time stop. The other DPS is going to cast his ultimate, and we're going to clean these up as quick as possible. And then we're going to go back to Vykosa, take another 5% off, and we're going to stop at 80. And this time the dire wolves are going to kind of recover. You don't actually kill them. You know, they go over the wall and they hulk down. They're sad. You beat them up, but you take her down to 80. Zell and Ahri are back in the fight. It's a rinse and repeat at this point. So the tank is going to hold onto Ahri and Vykosa again. You see, we're going to take out Zell. And the majority of the first part of this fight is this, right? It's just a kind of rinse and repeat of the percentages until later, in which the shock warden comes in, the archivist kind of ghost form comes in, and then it gets a little bit hectic, and we'll talk about that. So again, we take out Zell. Now we're moving back to Ahri. We're going to take Ahri down, and again, this is all patience. There's nothing to rush here. The worst thing you can do is damage Vykosa. So now we're on to Vykosa. We're in the 10% phase, so we're going to take her from 80 to 70. Again, just heavy attack, get some resources. We hit 70, we stop. Your designated first DPS is going to come over here, drop the ultimate, which is me, in the time stop, kill the 2 werewolf blood callers, and then we go back to the archivist for the next 5%, at which we're going to take Vykosa down to 65. Now at this point, stranglers have spawned in, and they're going to be all around the map. The good thing is they don't, pull you in and stun you. They just kind of fire these poison dots throughout the fight, but healer is going to make that negligible. You don't even really need to worry about the stranglers at all. You can't kill them, so don't even worry about them. They're just going to be firing attacks at people, and there's not really much you can do about it. So then we're going down to 65, werewolves again. Second DPS drops the ultimate, and we're back on Vykosa. Take her down to 60. Direwolves are back up, so it's Zell and Ahri for the third time that they're going to get beat up. I don't know why they haven't learned their lesson. Now, I will say about Zell and Ahri, the heavy attack, the conical attack that they do in front of them when they charged up, that does about 56,000 damage. So if you're standing in that, that will kill you. So be sure you roll dodge out of that, or you're simply too far that the conical attack will hit you. You can't just strafe left and right because they'll follow you with their attack. You actually need to be too far away or roll dodge. So that's something you need to keep in mind with the direwolves. So let's move on to the next phase. So we've taken out the werewolves, and we're going to bring down Vykosa to 40%, and this is where it gets kind of fun. So we're going to take her down here, and let's see what spawns. And I can't iterate right here in this moment with just taking your time, right? Get your resources back. Also, there's that totem there that Vykosa randomly spawns around the board. If you stand in the AoE of that totem, it will fear you. So that's something that can be bad, especially if it fears you and you run into the heavy attack of one of the werewolves or something. Because again, the werewolf heavy attacks, the direwolf heavy attacks can all kill you. Alright, so now that we're down to 50%, the other thing that has spawned in is a shock warden. The werewolves are much more of a priority than the shock wardens. Okay, take down the werewolves. We got a player down right there, but that's okay. So again, there's a heavy attack, keeping it trashy. I didn't roll dodge. So those heavy attacks are going to kill you. You need to dodge roll that. So now the shock wardens are spawning in, and when you kill them, they're going to generate a large lightning AoE around where you killed them. So you're seeing the tank hold Vykosa over here to the right, because one of the shock warden locations is actually on the left. and we don't want our tank to be standing in that AoE, so he kind of wants to stay there. So you're going to see that here. You're going to see this Shock Warden kind of spawn to the left. We're going to take him out, and because the tank is staying to the right, the large AoE that the Shock Warden generates, you can see the tank is not in that, so that's important. And when you're the tank, you kind of want to stay on the right side. Now the Shock Wardens are not particularly tied to the percentages as the werewolves and the dire wolf spawning in are. They just kind of continually come into the fight. So if you're too slow, you can have several Shock Wardens on the board at any given time. So that's something you need to be aware of. And the Shock Wardens are obviously going to cause lightning attacks to come down and hit you out of the sky, which isn't going to kill you. Your healer is going to be able to heal you through that. But they're kind of a nuisance. But again, taking out the werewolves is much more important than taking out the Shock Warden, because the werewolves attacks cause significantly more damage. So here we recovered a little bit. Now we're going to go down to 40% and get into the next Zell and Ari phase.
You're more resilient than Vykosa thought. Well, no matter.
And again, you're seeing me really just kind of heavy attack, get some resources back. There's no rush there. Take out that Shock Warden, and now we're going to take out Zell. Kind of get your resources back. There's the conical attack. You need to be sure you're roll dodging that. Again, if you're not, that will definitely kill you. Alright, make sure you stay out of that. And there's the totem. Again, we want to stay out of that AoE. Turn your AoEs to bright pink in this fight. That's certainly going to help you see kind of everything that can possibly damage you. So we're going to take down Ari right here and clean up this Shock Warden, and then we're going to take down Vykosa to 30%. And at 30%, now we're going to get the last kind of portion of this phase, and that's when a ghost form of the Archivist is going to come into the fight. And the Archivist is going to do a couple of the same attacks that he did in your previous fight, one of which is creating that AoE on a player, and that player needs to block and everybody else needs to stay out of that AoE, because if they are in there, they're going to take unblockable shock damage. And then he'll also be doing the symbols of Xerxes, so you need to pay attention to what symbols are coming. So here you go, you see the Archivist, he's doing his symbols, and we're doing our thing. We got our time stop down. One of us have dropped our AoE, the other, or our ultimate, the other one's saving it for the next wave, and you can see he's got the square symbol. So everybody has to find a square symbol and stay in that. Now I will say, while you're in that protection, all of the adds are kind of stunned and they won't attack you, but you can still damage them. So if you have some ranged attacks, keep dropping it on them and do whatever damage that you can. So this is where it gets very fun, it gets very chaotic because a lot is going on. Okay, you got the AoEs generated from the Shock Wardens, but again, keep them over in that left corner so your tank doesn't have to worry about them. Here's the AoE from the Archivist that I was telling you about. So luckily he roll dodged at the last second to avoid that, but you want to take all that yourself and block it. And he's also doing the symbols of Xerxes at the same time. But what you have noticed, if you have noticed, is that Archivist is at 30% health. We are not touching the Archivist because the damage to him is what's going to advance everything. We took the Vykosa, down to 30, and then we cleaned up the entire board. Alright, and then we go down to 25, and we're in the next phase, which is the next set of werewolves. We're dropping our ultimate. We're going to clean up all the Shock Wardens. Okay, this is all about patience. Take everything out before you go to the next phase of percentages, which again are always 10% and then 5% and then 5%, right? So you get to 90, then 85, then 80, then 70, 65 and 60, and then 50, 45 and 40, and so on. So kind of just having that patience and not pushing too fast is really the key to this entire fight. So here we go, and the last portion of this fight is really in our execute phase. So now we've taken the final 5% ads that we're going to focus on. Okay, so now we're going to take to 20%, and when you do that, Ari and the other direwolf are going to come in, and at this point you want your tank to just hold on to everything, and you want your DPS to just execute. So once you've finished all the 25% ads on, it's execute time. The direwolves are coming in, but again, you've got until 10% until the next portion of werewolves come in. So your best bet at this point is to simply execute, but don't get too cocky because you still have the Archivist doing the attacks that you saw there on me, as well as the symbols. It's not really crunch time until you hit 10%. You know, from 20 to 10, you really only have the direwolves to worry about, but make sure you get in your symbols and, you know, finish that fight. So we're gonna do that. We're in execute. We're gonna go for the kill. I think I'd take a nice little trashy death there right at the very end, but we finished the fight off. So let's go ahead and finish Vykosa off, and we'll talk about the monster set. So there we go, veteran hard mode of Moonhunter Keep. Honestly, one of the most fun hard modes I've played in this game. Just kind of all the mechanics of it, taking the slow pace. You know, I really enjoyed it. I had a ton of fun running this dungeon. I think it's a very unique dungeon, kind of inside the keep with the werewolves. It's very, very fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe. Check out other videos. So let's look at the monster set in this dungeon, which is the Vykosa set, which is a tank set. I don't see too many people running the set, honestly, because there's really just better tank sets to use, but it's going to give you additional healing taken, as well as when you bash an enemy that you've taunted, you'll frighten them and cause major maim, lowering their damage done for 30 seconds, and you can do that every 15 seconds. So it's, you know, it seems like a good set, but again, I don't see too many tanks using it due to the better sets that are available for tanks. Alright, so feel free to check out our Elder Scrolls playlist down here on the bottom left, and we hope to see you next time.